Good evening. Oh, that is so tepid. Try again. Thank you. Thanks for coming to Parasocial Relationships this evening when I know that there's a lot going on a Saturday night at the con, so I really appreciate you all coming in and hanging out with us for this next hour. So, we're going to talk about parasocial relationships. First, we're going to introduce ourselves, a little bit of housekeeping. The way that I moderate is I prefer if you not yell out from the audience and wait until we have Q&A, and then use the handy colored sheets that are left around the seats in the audience. Please stay on topic, and if you do not have a question, I will ask you to go find one. You all laugh every time, and it will be funny until I tell it to you. So, I'm going to start down at the end. If you could introduce yourselves, give your pronouns, and why you wanted to join this panel.
Oh boy, I get to start this exciting. Hi, I'm Kendrick. I use he, him pronouns, and I decided to join this panel because I love social media. I enjoy social media quite a bit. It's a great way to talk about mutual nerdy interests and other cool things in the world, and also, to an extent, keep up with some world events as long as we're mindful of ours and other boundaries.
All right. Hi, I'm Kluwe, he, him pronouns, and I'm on this panel because I have been a professional football player with a very public-facing role who is also on social media and garnered quite a few followers on said social media. And I think it's a really interesting thing to talk about, and something that more people need to understand is that parasocial relationships are something you need to have in your mind when you're interacting with people online.
Hi, I'm Taru Hunter, they, them pronouns. I was interested in being on this panel because I think I have a slightly different perspective as a smaller creator. I have a lot of front-facing and public-facing career choices that I've made, but it isn't just for the big and the famous and things like that. Parasocial relationships affect everybody, and it also goes both directions. So if you are a fan of something, you can be involved in a negative parasocial relationship with the creator.
I will go left.
I'm Naomi Kritzer, she, her pronouns, and I wanted to be on this panel because I find parasocial relationships kind of fascinating, and I have them in both directions. There are people who have parasocial relationships with me, and I definitely have parasocial relationships with people, especially podcasters. There's something about having them in my ears that makes them feel like my friends.
This is gonna be fun. And I'm your moderator, Tanya, she, they pronouns. I've run a very similar panel quite a bit at events like PAX and other conventions, and I've been on both sides of the coin, but now I try to be firmly on no receiving, but, well, the world doesn't work like that. So before we give a definition of parasocial relationships, quick show of hands, who knows what it means or what do you think it means? All right, about half the room. So parasocial relationships are the one-sided, one-and-a-half-sided idea of if you are supporting someone, if you're following someone on social media, you watch someone who streams, watch someone's YouTube videos, listen to their podcasts, you feel as if you know this person, but in reality you do not. It's a transactional thing. And especially when money comes into it, if you are supporting someone by Patreon or some other ways. So it is the idea of a relationship that really does not exist, except you think it is one way, and the person you are supporting or following or what have you, or a fan of, may or may not know you exist, but in reality they probably don't know you other than a screen name. So I wanted to talk about that, unless anyone has anything else to throw in about parasocial relationships from the panel. So there are kinds where, normally when I do this I'm focusing on live streaming on Twitch, but because we are all so varied, this can be more of a public figure, public-facing person, or someone who consumes content, and the other way around. So how do you all recognize a parasocial relationship if it is occurring or happening to you, or if you feel that you may be engaging in a parasocial relationship?
So I have one I know for sure is on Blue Sky right now because they respond to literally every post I make, which that's not a good sign. If you respond to every single post someone makes, it's kind of like, okay, why are you doing that? In that, everything I do shouldn't be something that like you feel the need to respond to, right? Like I have my regulars who I recognize, and I'm like, oh yeah, they'll respond like here and there, and I recognize them because they respond regularly. But there's a difference between that and like every single post. And so yeah, just be aware of like that starts to come off more as an obsession rather than like, oh, I'm a fan of yours and I want to interact with what you're doing.
Another sign I've noticed, like when I post on TikTok, is that if somebody only comments on my post as opposed to like messaging me, like my actual friends will message me in a variety of ways, including Discord, Facebook Messenger, text messages, and sometimes I even get phone calls from my bestie from college. It's amazing. And that just feels so different than someone, kind of like Chris is mentioning, who just comments on posts or just interacts with what the public has access to. It just feels different.
I think we need to recognize that parasocial relationships don't have to be inherently negative, and that if you have a relationship with a person that is not your friend, they don't know your real name, they don't know where you live, you wouldn't call them in an emergency, most likely that is some level of parasocial relationship. And so like recognizing that that type of relationship needs to be different than the relationships that you have with your real friends is really important. I think that's where a lot of people get lost, is they think, oh my gosh, this person has talked to me in stream the last time I was there, and so that means they care about me as a person, so I'm gonna trauma dump on them during this stream because that's what I would do to my friend in a text message. And that relationship is completely different. So like I think the overall heading of parasocial relationships is important to not be 100% negative, but it can very quickly drift into the negative.
I was going to say, asking excessively personal questions and asking for excessively personal favors are two other things that, you know, are sort of hallmarks of a parasocial relationship where the person has invented a relationship that is a lot more intimate than the one you actually have. Because you're right, like there are parasocial relationships that are fine. I've never like, you know, emailed Michael Hobbs and asked if I can stay in his house, for instance. I'm aware that like the fact that he feels like my buddy does not mean he actually is.
Right.
And I have those relationships with, you know, other people on social media. Like I speak with people who I have never met in real life, and yet I do feel like I have a relationship with them. And I know a lot of my followers are the same way, and the vast majority of those interactions are positive because those people understand that yes, this is a social media relationship. This isn't you're coming over to my house and like I'm cooking dinner for you relationship.
So it's funny you say that because, so quick story, I was at WorldCon last year in Glasgow, and Murray Lafferty was on the version of that I did at WorldCon. And someone actually asked Murray after that panel to be their +1 at the Hugo Awards. That was just a podcast follower. They were not someone that Murray knew. And Murray told this story on the panel. I'm not telling like their business. Murray's husband was literally sitting next to her. And so that is the kind of thing where I think of Parasocial because they follow her podcast and her writing and her books, but they felt totally comfortable going, hey, can I be your +1 to the Hugos like, oh, in about an hour? So those are things that you should not do. So we've talked about kind of the ways to recognize a parasocial relationship. What are the ways in which you deal with it? Because I know what I do, but I'm a weird edge case on this panel, I think. So once you discover that there is parasociality going on, either you like, and I like what you're saying because you're just like, I am aware of what I'm doing, I'm aware of this exchange, but you're not being creepy, which is where I think a lot of parasocial relationships edge into. So go ahead.
Yeah, I guess it depends. Like how I handle it. Excuse me. How I handle it depends on whether I feel like the person is like getting into creepy, because it's gonna be different. And like, there's people where it's clear that there's like, you know, they're asking you a personal question, but they're not necessarily doing it out of, they're awkward. Like there's, you know, awkwardness and creepiness aren't mutually exclusive, but people can be just awkward. And sometimes it's clear that someone is just awkward, and like, that's gonna get a different reaction than if somebody's creeping me out. But like, you know, if somebody asks me like an excessively personal question, in person, my usual instinctive reaction is to just stare at them silently for a second or two. And if they say, oh, I'm sorry, then we can just drop it, right? If they're asking me for a favor that I don't feel comfortable giving, I say no. I am pretty good at saying no. That's actually a good life skill for everyone, but especially if you're in the public eye as a writer, even a tiny bit, you need to be comfortable saying no.
The thing too is as someone who sometimes posts and also sometimes consumes content, if folks are making me uncomfortable, I just take a break. I don't announce it. It's not an airport. I don't have to announce my departure. But I will just take a break. I won't go on TikTok for a few days or a week or a month or whatever I need. And when I come back, yeah, sure, my follower count is low, but that's not really why I'm there. I'm there to have fun and watch pirate TikTok videos sometimes. And sometimes hockey videos and sometimes other interests that I have because there's so much content on there. TikTok can't even put me in a niche, which is really great. Take that algorithm. And on other social medias, I'm a therapist, so I have to have really healthy boundaries. I am under different names on different social medias. I don't post much publicly just because I can't ethically do that, because people will find me, including clients, and I don't want that. Same reason I don't give individual therapy out of my home, unless it's virtual. I don't want clients coming to my house. I don't want people on the internet finding me in any real personal way.
Yeah. So for me, I've actually had some interesting experiences with this in that when I was first on social media, the vast majority of my parasocial relationships were due to sports. So I got some real interesting people to interact with. And yeah, that was fun. For the most part, it would be, depending on how they came at me, I'd be like, okay, I'm either going to have fun making fun of you if you're being a real dick, or I'm going to just block you and move on. Now, granted, this was back in the early Twitter days when the internet was a semi-kinder place. Obviously, as a straight white male, it was much kinder to me, than it is to a lot of people. But nowadays, it's like, okay, I'll give you a chance, but I'm going to tell you, hey, this is weird. What you're doing, this is weird. If you keep it up, I will block you. And on Blue Sky, the block is the nuclear block. You will just be banished to the dark world, and I will never see you again. So really think about what you're doing here, because yeah, you're close to crossing the line. But then I also have the interactions with people that are the good parasocial relationships, right? Where it's just yeah, you do want to interact with people, and you develop an online relationship with them. And I've actually made friends with people I played World of Warcraft with. Met up with them in real life. It was yeah, no, you're cool people. This is a good relationship. This could advance into something as actual friendship. But that also depends on who you are as a person, how vulnerable you are as a person, right? And that's going to be different for everyone. There's no one size fits all solution for that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to take into consideration is your own safety when it comes to parasocial situations. And if it is the level where you're feeling incredibly uncomfortable, then it's the nuclear option every time. But if you think it's a person who just doesn't understand or is trying to just connect in some way, giving a person a chance is usually the way that I'll handle things. But yeah, there's a level where you're nope, that is a no, and they're blocked and banned in all the ways. And I think it just depends on a case-by-case basis.
I block really easily. Online, I block really fast. I block people who are, if I saw somebody being a dick in a friend's mentions, that's an instant block.
Yeah, I've definitely changed in that respect. In that, before it was okay, yeah, no, I'll make fun of them and start trolling them back because I'm a troll at heart. That's it's what I do. But yeah, these days it's just I look at it as is this really worth my time and effort? And in most cases, it isn't. It's why do I care? Why? No, I'm just gonna hit the button and be okay, good luck. Sorry, this isn't working out.
Yeah. Another thing too that's really concerning as someone who frequently consumes content is when I see other creators acting like they're trying to start a cult. That really freaks me out. When they're they give their followers little nicknames and they're oh yes, my little, whatevers. There's so many others out there, I can't even think of one. The ADHD is ADHD. But it's concerning. And people who really like a lot of attention, not that attention is a bad thing to want or need, we are all allowed it. And the people who are using those followers for kind of various purposes, even into propaganda territory, media literacy is something I'm very passionate about. But seeing that kind of behavior is also concerning. And that also gets me to block people real quick if I see that.
Yeah, well, and I think that's actually a really interesting point, is that if you see people developing parasocial relationships with you, you do actually have a responsibility to think about the power that you hold, right? Because these are people who want to develop a relationship with you, and you can use that power for good, or you can use it for evil. So, like, as someone who is the one being interacted with, like, consider your actions, right? Because you can start a cult. Usually that doesn't end well. I would not recommend it.
So you jumped ahead in the syllabus, so
Oh, sorry.
No, it was funny. It's hilarious because that was like literally the next point. So we are doing well on time. Because, especially, you were talking about creators who misuse their cult of personality, shall we say. Because I see it a lot in the streaming space where people go, oh no, I want expensive thing, but woe is me, I cannot afford thing. And then, oh look, suddenly a bar has appeared on my stream. And it does very much go the other way of people knowing that they've got fans, knowing that they've got these people who are willing to come and throw money at them or show up, or oh no, I want my favorite creator to be able to go to Disneyland or go to TwitchCon. Yes, I said it on purpose, whoever watches this video. Or the Switch 2, when it was announced, we knew how much it would cost and when it would come out. Suddenly there were bars popping up on people's streams of, I really want a Switch 2, but I can't get it. And it's like, honestly, some people maybe just could not get the Switch 2 or whatever it is. But too many times you'll see people, and it's like, you have 5,000 people watching you. And it makes you wonder, like, is your ratio of viewers to subs this bad that getting something like that is bad? Or are you intentionally manipulating your audience? So if you, as a consumer of content or books or podcasts or what have you, how do you kind of flip that when you think someone is misusing their power, their social capital? Because we've all seen it.
Oh, yeah. I trash talk them to my friends later, is the main thing I do.
And I think a really important thing to look at too is like, are they constantly asking for money, and is it for themselves? So if it's a person who's constantly fundraising for various charitable organizations and things like that, that's a completely different thing, and you should, if you can, contribute to those things. That's not what this can turn into. It's constantly like, oh, my computer broke down, I need a new graphics card. Oh, my car payment was late or whatever, or I need rent, or I need my cell phone's turned off, and it's time after time after time, they keep asking for more and more and more. When you're already giving them something by either being subscribed to them or following them, all of those things do contribute to their income. So you shouldn't have to do a ton extra always for them in order to keep them afloat.
Yeah, well, and I think also a key point to that is, right, are they trying to make you feel guilty if you don't support them, right? Because then that is definitely taking advantage of a relationship. Like, because people do have legit emergencies, right?
Yeah.
Like there are times it's like, oh yeah, no, I really do need some help here. But if they're like, oh yeah, no, I'm gonna feel really bad. My followers are gonna let me down. If you don't get me the new Switch 2, then like, okay, yeah, no, that's kind of a red flag. Like, you might want to look at that. And I know in my case, like personally, I got a lot of attention when I got arrested. And a lot of people are like, we want to support you. Where can we buy your jersey? Like, where can we buy stuff? And I'm just like, I am well off enough that I don't need you to support me personally. But if you do want to support me, go donate to the Trevor Project. Here's a link. Like, that's where you can take advantage of parasocial relationships and actually try to do something good, right? Like, because you do have that power when people interact with you.
I wish I was simple, but that's okay. Yeah, no, like I remember when I was like fundraising for surgery for myself and talking about it felt really icky. It felt like I was having anxiety because I didn't want to manipulate people. It was just like, okay, here's my GoFundMe, goodbye. If you want to help, cool. If you didn't, like that was cool too. And that was 2 years ago, so like please don't look for that anymore. But at the same time, right, like it felt hard, and that's kind of how I want people to feel when they're asking for something kind of not beyond the norm or like even in the norm, like just having that conscientiousness, not because I want people to feel like guilty or bad about like having needs or wants, but because those feelings, I'm like a therapist here, are something that help keep us grounded, right? And so I think some of these creators have gotten so into their own charismaticness that they have forgotten to stay grounded in those feelings. And again, like once they start giving their followers nicknames and like treating them like a cutesy little army. It's concerning. And it's cool, like, of course, there are people to the Trevor Project. I know like Mercury Stardust does a lot of raising for trans folks, fundraising for trans folks as well, which is really beautiful. And uses like the attention on her to like, again, like point towards really important causes as opposed to her own pockets. And if she's like talking about her own pockets, she's very clear. There's a lot of creators who do a really nice job of those boundaries and saying like, okay, this is what's up. This is why I'm asking for help. If you can, cool. If you can't, cool. And that's a really green flag to look for in creators who are looking for support of some kind.
I do want to say that like if you've got a Patreon or if you make like a significant amount of your income through like microtransactions, like which is true for a fair number of creators, I feel like it's reasonable. So you have to mention that probably more than you're going to be comfortable with. That's just, or people won't, you know. People will come to you and say, like, you know, do you have a Patreon somewhere when it's in your bio and you mention it every week and people still won't know. But like, there's definitely, like for me, there's definitely a line, and I can't necessarily tell you where it is, but I know when I see it. And there's sort of a classic example of someone who was over the line. Somebody I knew on a bulletin board a million years ago, like it was a parenting bulletin board in the early 2000s. So this is not a fellow writer. If you want to know the fellow writers, I trash talk. You have to find me later. But she would post to this bulletin board about how poor she was and how broke she was and how she wasn't going to have any money to buy her child Christmas presents. And like there was one year she said, like after Christmas, the only reason her kid had any gifts under the tree was that one person from this board had sent her kid a gift, and thus her kid had gotten a Christmas. Like 30 people had sent her gifts. And and at some point people started discussing it privately and realized just how many people on this board had sent her items or money, and it was like a lot of people, so many people. And so like that, and that's the kind of thing that, you know, when I see it, versions of that, I'm like, there's, you know, this is messed up. One of the things also, it's messed up.
Well, it is, and I think we have to be careful of delineation of, we see people basically scamming.
Yeah, right, she was a straight up scammer.
Versus, like you said, there is a need.
Yes.
So if I see someone like, oh, this happened, my car broke down, and they are not someone who is constantly asking, and they don't make people feel guilty, like you said, there's a difference. But there are people who very much use the power of their personality. And, you know, Kendrick, you've said more than once, like, giving people cutesy names, your community a name, or something like that. I don't think there's harm in, like, giving a community a nickname if everyone's on board with it. But what I see, and I know Taru's seen it too, like, you know, the creator that starts and ends a stream or a video or something with, I love you, or things like that, or, you know, the kind of over-the-top, over-familiarity is to start with. And I think that is part of the problem, where it's just this never-ending cycle of over-familiarity from the creator, because then you get instances where people think they know the person on the screen, and they really don't.
Right, yeah, it's almost like they're encouraging the parasocial behavior
Exactly.
from the get-go, which again makes it tough to then say, well, no, why are you doing this? Well, you told us you loved us.
Yeah.
Like, did that mean nothing?
Another part of this too, like I mentioned the propaganda aspect earlier, and some of that is, you know, politicians do this all the time, right? Instead of asking for favors, they'll say, instead of saying, oh, they'll do something for someone, they'll ask someone for a favor. And that actually builds that connection really deeply. And so like when creators are doing that kind of behavior, it can also be very alarming.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know, we may get a little serious. Warning, if any of us tell dark stories, because parasocialism, while not inherently a bad thing unto itself, can get very dark and very scary and things like that. Have any of you had an experience where a parasocial relationship, parasocial fan has crossed a line? Because I think it's important people understand that these are not stories we just tell to tell. These are things that are warning signs. These are the biggest red flags that you should be looking for. I have plenty, but I will go last.
I mean, I don't have a lot, because for me, a lot of it is like, it's either excessive DMs, right? Or like, someone tracks down my email. I don't think anyone's tracked down my phone number, even though it apparently is pretty easy to find online. Please don't do that. But yeah, no, for me, since a lot of it happens on social media, and the fact I am a tall white man, like a lot of the potential incidents are diffused by that, because someone who is going to take it too far is like, wait a minute, this is a big dude who played a violent sport. Like, is this really something I want to do? Right. So yeah, that is definitely a privilege that I have that not a lot of people do. So I've been very fortunate in that. For me, the most it's been has really just been like sort of excessive unwanted contact online. I think that's been about the most. That being said, during Gamergate, you know, I got doxxed. People sent pizzas to my house. Like that sucked, because then it's like, okay, yeah, that's your family security type thing. But at the time, we were also living in a gated community, and I was like, okay, well, you know, first I got to get past the gate, and then the other thing is like I said, I'm a huge troll, so one of the things they did, they sent a dildo to my house. It's this really pathetic dildo. It's like, you know, not looking to shame anyone or anything, but like, it was literally the cheapest option from the store.
Chris, can I say, that was not a thing I thought I'd ever hear of.
Right, it was a pathetic dildo. And so what I did was like, okay, yeah, no, I'm going to troll you back, so I autographed it and then auctioned it off for charity. And made sure to post it to social media. But after that, it kind of stopped. Because I'm like, oh, damn it, we just raised $900 for trans charities.
Oh.
Yeah.
Moderator, could you repeat the question? I was so entranced in that story that my ADHD again.
So have you had a parasocial relationship or any other kind of similar experience where it has unfortunately crossed a line?
Yes. So
If you are willing and comfortable to talk about it as well.
So I am one of those nerds who has been a role player on Tumblr, and people love to send DMs that are very comfortable. Just because I am writing that a character is doing a certain thing or feeling a way about another character is not an invitation or a license to either, you know, shame someone's ship really aggressively with lots of violent language, to send threatening messages, to send nudes, to send all sorts of content of messages. Yeah, that I had to turn off and on real fast.
It's possible I've gotten creepy DMs on Blue Sky, and I just didn't even pick up on the fact that it was a creepy parasocial DM as opposed to a romance scammer. Because I get so much crap from the romance scammers, I just like see like the hey baby and I just block.
I think the only thing that would qualify for me is I've worked Renaissance Fair for 20 years and I do the jousting thing, so there is an inherent built-in fan base to that. And there have been several instances where people have tried to follow me backstage, and because they don't perceive me as a threat, because I am not the stereotypical look of a jouster. So they think because I am who I am, it's going to be okay for me to just go backstage with you and, you know, meet the horses or whatever it is. And it's never okay, and that's never something that's a line that you should never cross. And I've also had someone wait for me at the gate when I was trying to leave and be like, oh, well, do you want to go get a drink? And I'm like, no, especially not now, because you waited for me at the gate, and that's really freaking weird, because I normally don't even leave out that way, and this was one of the times that I did, and they had waited there for me specifically. So those moments are just not okay.
Yeah, I had somebody follow me around at a con party once, and it was like, and he was really persistent, and I didn't know how to take him, and like, Jed Hartman came to my rescue, was very kind. And just sort of, the guy was really drunk and was like kept trying to re-engage with me as I tried to like extricate myself in a non-confrontational way, and he wouldn't sort of take the brush off, like the gentle brush off. And Jed was like, sir, I think she's done talking to you. Why don't you go find someone else to talk to? And if anyone else here knows Jed Hartman, but he's not very big. He's just, you know, but he was a guy, and that mattered in that moment.
I have several stories. I'm going to tell you just, well, one of them. 1 year at PAX Unplugged, a friend of ours was, with me because I was going to go run a game, and he was helping me carry stuff around. And someone approached are you Cypher tier? And I'm like, maybe, because that part sadly is not the funny bit of it, because not too long ago, a esports athlete, a young lady, was murdered by someone at a meet and greet, which is why now we have a lot more security at those kind of events. And this guy basically asked for an unban in person from my Twitch channel and Twitter. But then he didn't want to give me his handle, which makes it kind of difficult if I was disposed to actually unban him. And it turned out he had kind of a racist username. Oh yeah, so those of you old enough know that monkey is part of a lot of slurs.
Yep.
Oh look, some of you have been outside. So TLDR, I've had people come up to me in person and ask to be unbanned or unblocked. I've had people, obviously do things on Twitch. If you read Kotaku and you Google my name, don't tell me you did it, I just know it's out there. Google my actual name and Kotaku and Twitch harassment, and you'll find an article about it. I almost quit streaming. So the parasocialness can get very ugly very quickly, and that's something I wanted people to understand, is that it's not just, someone keeps giving me gift subs, TP, they keep giving me money, which I will then turn around and give to charity or something, because it's a little creepy.
And then if I can just interject real quick, I think we're talking about this in pretty much a gaming, streaming related idea. This happens a lot in sports. So if you are a sports fan, bear in mind parasocial relationships happen there too. Because I've been at many Vikings events where they're fan events, and it's like, oh boy, you really think you know me because you see me on the television every Sunday, and it's like, yeah, I don't know who you are, and I'm gonna try to be polite because obviously you're a fan of the team, but just because you're a fan of something, it doesn't give you license to then treat someone as if they're an object, and I think that's really kind of at the root of it, right? Is these parasocial relationships, you're not really being viewed as a human being. You're being viewed as some sort of archetype or vision that they built up in their mind. And me as a human being, I am complicated. I am a complex thing. I'm not just Chris Warcraft. There's a lot more that goes into Chris Kluwe.
Well, and I think that's a really important thing to look at too, is when I'm working at a Renaissance fair, I'm a fictional character. I am not a real person. I am a character that I created in my brain that I play for you every week. That's not who I am for real. That's not who all my friends know. And so the idea that you've created a relationship in your head with this character is even more difficult to separate than having a person meet me and be weird in person, having that situation. And I think with the advent of lots more video games being super popular and actors getting really, really popular, people have created these relationships with not only the actors, but the characters, and they sometimes can't even separate the character from the actor. And that's a huge problem, where they can't separate your number on your jersey from who you are as a human. And that's I think where a really insidious root of parasocialism can exist.
It's almost similar in the therapy world as well, because it's almost required for the therapeutic relationship, because therapists aren't blank slates. Let's stop lying about that one, right? But and therapy is not apolitical either, and my clients get to know things about me when they ask them, and if it's appropriate, and if I'm okay sharing that information. But I'm still the Kendrick that they kind of create in their mind, and that's important in that kind of relationship. And then, I had a client tell me that they wish that we could be friends, in an alternate universe where I'm not their therapist. And I said, yeah, kind of same, but also I really love doing this job, and I love getting to support you in this way. This is also really precious and special and important. So, like we said earlier, it doesn't always have to be negative, and sometimes it is a very powerful thing. But again, that relationship also has a lot of strict boundaries. I know there may be clients of mine at the convention, because they may have told me that, or may not, I don't know. And I was like, okay, well, if you see me and I'm wearing booty shorts and fishnets like I was yesterday, you can see me in that, just know that might happen, because they don't cosplayer. And you can say hi. I'm not gonna say hi to you first or acknowledge you in any way. If you give me a little bro nod from across the room, that's cool too. And I told them, I'll never be offended if you don't approach. I will never approach you first, just because I'm not gonna help you. And again, having those boundaries clear and upfront with a little humor really, really has helped.
I'm just gonna like turn it over to Kendrick because you're just like running the whole Sullivan.
Oh,
Not
no.
Sullivan, but no, this is
I'm just a
great.
nerd for this. I love this stuff.
No, I love it. I love when my panelists are prepared. You don't understand. But you know, since you brought up boundaries, let's talk about how do we each manage these boundaries. Because, well, for me, I'm very clear of one boundary I keep is when I'm streaming, when I'm doing other things. Is that if you come into my stream and call me Tanya and I do not know you, you're gonna get corrected real quick. Because the online handle is there for a reason. And it's not that I can't get to be friends with people I've met through streaming. Like I've been in Taru's house, Taru's been in my house, this has all happened. But again, it was a mutual getting to know each other versus a, I'm going to talk at you and talk to you like I know you kind of thing. The other boundary that I try to maintain is, if I'm at a convention and I do not know you, please do not try to like just follow along or come with me. Because there are friends I have here where yes, you are welcome to come with me if I go to dinner and it's appropriate, or if it's not a business thing. But if I don't know you and I've just met you at this convention an hour ago, don't travel along behind us or try to come with, because that's just weird, because I don't actually know you. So what are ways in which you all maintain boundaries? And after we address this, then I will open it up for Q&A.
Well, just a thought that I was having as you were talking was like, a lot of this just is, I'm an ADHD therapist, so this is another special interest, but a lot of this is like normal people behavior that a lot of people don't know how to do or choose not to do for whatever reason. And so again, just like, hey, you're following me, that's weird, please stop. I mean, it does help. Or sometimes like, you're at cons or something, just going into another room or going to the bathroom, sometimes that is a helpful way to make people not do the things. If it's someone who seems like they are like a relatively reasonable human who could just be making an awkward mistake, like we talked about, awkward is a human thing too. Like it's okay to be awkward and weird. I do it all the time, professionally. And you know, at the same time, right? Like if my friends aren't like, you don't have lunch right now. Like how do I know I'm being too much? You guys tell me. Like so vice versa. And so that's cool too. Like, if they don't take it, that's.
Yeah, I think communication is a big part of it, and then also just knowing how to walk away from the situation, right? Where it's just like, you know, okay, you've been talking to me for 10 minutes, which is great. Like I love talking to people. Like that's, you know, that is one of the reasons why I'm on social media. You know, like why I appear like at cons and stuff like that. But at a certain point, I gotta go talk to other people too. Everyone wants to be the main character, right? Like we all consider ourselves the main character, and it's like, well, but yes, we need to take into account that there are other people out there too, and that we don't have more than 24 hours in a day. Like there is, you know, there are things that we have to do with the time that we have, and it's not even sometimes where it's just like, oh no, I can't stand talking to you. It's just, no, I legit, like, I do need to get to this other panel. I need to be there. And so, yeah, for me, humor is a lot of it. I use humor a lot for boundaries because it's just like, you know, that's, if you can do it, it's a really easy way to diffuse a situation. You know, you just make a quick joke or something like that, and then be like, "Hey, have a good con," and then that, you know, that also tends to let people know, because some people do have trouble with social interactions, right? That's okay. That's an okay thing to have. Like that's, you know, you might be neurotypical, and like you don't read the same social cues as everyone else. So I'm going to give you a very obvious social cue, like I have enjoyed our time, but like, hey, please enjoy the rest of your time, because like now I need to, you know, either go do something else or talk to someone else. And yeah, I think good communication is really at the root of setting appropriate boundaries.
And I think just having clear boundaries. So like when a person crosses a line, you let them know. And you have to consistently let them know in a lot of cases. And so, like when we do streaming, we don't like the use of ableist language. So you constantly have to be like, well, that is ableist language, please do not use that language. And I mean, I got caught on Tanya's stream for it, because I didn't even realize at the time that what I was using was ableist language, and Tanya was very much like, Tanya knows me. I was like, hey, Taru, no. And I was like, ooh, yes, correct. You are correct. That was not the right word to use. I'm going to find a different one. And it's in those moments where you, even with your friends, you have to set those boundaries and show that those boundaries are going to stay in place no matter what.
That's a really good example. Yeah, No, so I was just gonna say, in person, I actually find, so I come to cons to talk to people, like, so it's totally, like, it's generally fine if people at cons want to come and you know, if they see me, if they want to sign something, if they want to chat or whatever, like, if they know who I am and want to talk to me, that's always okay, almost always okay. Unless I'm like trying to get to the bathroom, in which case I will generally say, I'm sorry, I have to pee. But yeah, no, online, in conversations, it is weird how people will wander in who don't. Social media is just sort of inherently kind of open. So like, you know, if you're talking about a topic, people will just wander in, and sometimes they'll say something really inappropriate, and it's, you know, right. I will say to people, like, you know, I am not interested in hosting a discussion about topic, or, you know, we're not going to debate the validity of trans identities here, or whatever. And then if they keep it up, I block them, right? Like that's yeah.
And then, sorry, I had one more thing. So on the topic of boundaries, it's also important to set boundaries for yourself, right? Am I doing something that could encourage parasocial relationships, right? Like if some random person invites me up to their hotel room to have drinks, probably not going to accept, because they're going to take it in a certain way, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I'm the one who caused that to happen. So also recognizing that you do have a responsibility to other people to understand, like, okay, this is happening, what is my response to that? What am I going to do to make sure that this doesn't devolve into something bad or an awkward situation? Because you do have that power over yourself, right? We do have that power to determine how we respond to situations.
And like Tanya said earlier, if we are realizing that, like, oops, I put my foot in my mouth, because we're really flexible sometimes, it's okay to say, oops, I put my foot in my mouth, and I would like to rescind what I have just words into existence. Most people will be forgiving and understanding. If they're not, maybe it's also an indicator that they're not people, and it's a good time to exit stage left.
I had a thought and it just literally left my head. I look like the math gif right now.
I mean, this is what, like 5th panel, 6th panel of the console?
This is 7. I have one
Yeah,
more
there you
tomorrow.
go.
So I'm a little fried, but also I can talk about this without much preparation because I talk about it so much, both in person, on panels, online. And I also just want to acknowledge what Chris said, is that parasociality has been there since the beginning of entertainment. You know, who remembers the Jodie Foster thing? Yeah. So it has been there, it just has not been as prevalent and as visible until we had social media, until we had blogs, until we had ways for folks to interact with the celebrities and sports figures and streamers and novelists and writers that they are fans of. Things like Worldcon, where you can just buy a ticket and go and then interact with your favorite writer, which on the one hand is pretty cool. I can go talk to people like Naomi and Mur and other folks, but also other people can go talk to those favorite writers. So it's a little weird sometimes. So I'm going to open it up to questions. Remember, have a question, not a novel, not a backstory, not a soliloquy. I will just be blunt and tell you I do not care. It is almost 8 o'clock at night, I really do not care. Also, I would like to make sure that everyone who has a question does get a chance to bring it up. So please be brief, be concise, and be on topic. So, if you have a question, raise your colored piece of paper. Oh, come on now, ask a question. In the front, and then I'll get you in the back.
So this is to do with what I think originally I heard called Monday morning or armchair quarterbacking. Do you think it is a form of parasocial relationship when you find yourself the main character of the internet, or something sports related happens and suddenly 2,000 people in your mentions have opinions on your profession or whatever? Is that a form of parasocial relationship? And if so, how do you deal with it? Because it can be really hard to deal with 1,000 people suddenly sending you a single message going, "You idiot, how dare you have this opinion?"
Right, yeah, so I've been the main character before. And sometimes it's okay, because everyone's like, yay, good job, you did the thing. And sometimes it's like, you kicked it 18 yards. What is wrong with you? And so, no, I think a big part is, personally, what is your tolerance for that, right? So like for me, I make a point of reading all my replies on social media. A, because I can read really fast, and B, I'm a glutton for punishment. So, but no, I'm on social media because I do like to talk with people. Like that is what I like to use it for. And so you can either detach, right? So you can be like, okay, I'm gonna go dark for a bit, like just kind of let it fizzle out, because the attention will go away eventually. You know, people will find a new main character, and it's gonna suck for that person, but it's not gonna be you. But yeah, I think it really does depend on what the situation is, what your personal tolerance for other people talking at you is, and then just having the mindset of this will pass, right? Like if we've seen anything from the past 11 years of politics, is that what should be a really big story all of a sudden has just kind of gone, and now we're on to the next thing, and then now we're on to the next thing. Like I personally don't think that's a very good thing for our society, but that is kind of our acting these days. So just being able to sort of like have that internal sense of, yeah, this sucks right now, but it will eventually go away. Now, that being said, I have also had experience with that. Like the first time that happens to you, that can be terrifying. Because all of a sudden, like it's, why are all these people talking at me? like again, most of us are not used to getting yelled at by, 1,000 strangers. Like that's not a normal part of everyday life. So yeah, that's one of the downsides of social media, is it does allow people to do something like that. And what I've done personally is I have changed my own behavior in regards to things like that. Where, if someone is the main character and they're getting piled on, and I look at it now where it's just like, do I really need to add my voice to this? Like, is this necessary for me to chime in and sort of continue this? And, if it's just some random person, I'm not going to join in. Because again, like they might have been taken out of context. The story might have gotten twisted up. Like I've been there and I know it sucks. Now if it's someone like J.D. Vance, oh hell yeah, because that guy sucks. So yeah, just try to see the humanity behind the person, and odds are, if they're a relative unknown person, they probably aren't prepared for this, and they probably don't understand what's happening. So, it's within your power to not continue the pilot.
And it's like, no matter how nicely you phrase it too, right?
Right, yeah, it just gets added to the flood.
One of the great observations I've heard about, it was originally Twitter, but I would say it now about Blue Sky, from Mary Robinette Cole, is that a lot of the time it's like having a conversation with your friends in front of a microphone that is turned off but could go live at any time and broadcast whatever you just said to 1 million people. So be careful, is her point. And the thing is that if you have a high follower account, you have within your power to flip someone's microphone live. And that can be super useful, because you can flip someone's microphone live as they're saying, oh my God, I'm in so much trouble and I need money. Or you can flip somebody's microphone live just as they said something ill-considered and intemperate that is going to get them in trouble, and turn them into the main character. So, if you're going to do the second one, make sure they really deserve it.
Yeah, I'm sure no one has heard this saying, but with great power comes great responsibility. Make sure you are responsible.
I saw in the back a pink asterisk, and then I will get folks more toward the front.
Do you have any insight into a situation where you yourself find yourself getting feeling that parasocial connection for a regular in your chat, to where you have to reel in your own empathy and find yourself?
All right, can you speak up?
I can repeat it. So basically the question is, have you ever found yourself developing a parasocial relationship with someone in your chat, like a regular in your chat, and then what do you do about it?
That has happened for me. So when I got partnered on Twitch, I had a couple people who were like, oh my God, I want to support you, I'm so happy this happened. And then they asked for my home address. to send me a gift, and I was like, no, I don't know your actual name, let alone why you want my home address, because you're not going to show up and murder me. Oh, I didn't say I don't want you to show up and murder me, but I was like, I'm not comfortable with that. I've got a P.O. box. However, at the time, I wasn't even home, And I don't know my P.O. box off the top of my head. I said, let me get that to you when I'm home. And it was like night and day. I was suddenly the villain in their story, everything else, and I was like, cool, you get blocked. And I blocked them, I banned them, and it was just very creepy because if I want to congratulate someone on something like that, here, I'm gonna gift you 10 subs, enjoy, I'm happy for you, versus I want your home address. It's very much recognizing you want a little too much of my time, you always want to be on Discord, you always want to, like, you want to take the energy that I have outside of being alive, and that is not okay. Just because you give me $5 or $10 a month does not mean you get to buy my time. And I've just been very firm of, I will send your money back. I once mailed someone back $10 in pennies. They annoyed me that much on Patreon. I banned them and said, because they had given their address on Patreon, I mailed them back the $10 they had given me over the 2 months. Because I'm petty. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to get to these two folks in front, and then we'll see where we are. Green asterisk?
I appreciate Chris's mentioning the parasocial nature of American politics these days. I would love to hear the panelists say more about that, because I look at the American politics and I see bad parasocial relationships everywhere. More in some than in others, but it's a bug, not a feature.
But a lot of this also indicates how, I mean, like one side is calling for murder of people like me, and one side is calling for lukewarm justice, and I have a lot of feelings on that. And, right, like, people who are in the middle are like, let's do some genocide, or like, let's do some trans murder, but not a lot. And I just can't get behind that for a lot of reasons. Crazy, I know. But again, it's similar to like the online presence of a lot of folks, right? There's a lot of this pressure to have opinions to of whatever variety people, like whatever camp people fall to, left wing, right wing, centrist, whatever, right, wrong, or indifferent, whatever it may be. And within that, right, we're also seeing a lot of influencers play into the propaganda, like I mentioned earlier. Things like how they eat and sleep and breathe, and the products they use and the foods they eat. And if you just, use this product, you will not have ADHD anymore. I don't want TikTok sending me those ads. If you, use this supplement, you will look this way or be this way. And it's so much more subtle than it used to be, so there's more nuance in that way, but not in a good way. And there's less nuance when it comes to these presentations of politics. There's a lot more emotional manipulation. There's very leading language going on. There's, God, like just the way that people are talked about is dehumanizing, it's degrading, it's demoralizing. I'm really tired of being a political football. I like playing sports. Chris and I were on a sports panel yesterday together, it was very fun. And I love playing hockey, but I don't want to be the hockey puck, thank you.
So, everyone's trying to talk.
So part of what I am known for is a blog about elections in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And so the thing about parasocial relationships and politicians is that it's really inherent, right? Like it is a big piece of being a politician, is convincing people to feel a certain way about you and to feel like they know you, and like obviously they don't. Even at the local level, you're not going to be able to talk to every single one of your constituents unless that's, most of them don't really want to talk to you most of the time. So yeah, I mean, it really, like it's very inherent. It's just, and it's not necessarily unhealthy. I mean, it doesn't have to be, because like what politicians are trying to convince you of, at sort of the most basic level, is that they care about you and your concerns. And a lot of the time, it's not, I mean, at the local level, it's not inherently bullshit, right? Like, they do care about you and your concerns. They might not be able to fix your specific problems, but they are invested in the community, and that's why they're running. At the local level, it's such an unrewarding job for the most part, being an elected, like, state legislator, even, even when you're not at risk of being murdered. It's not a super rewarding job. But it's, yeah, there's a whole shtick that you'll see politicians do in like their ads where they're very folksy, and they're like, there's like a thing where they're like walking down the street and they're like petting their dog and they're holding hands with their kids, and it's like, it's all about, you know, convincing you that you know them. So it just, yeah, it's part of the game to a pretty intense degree.
Yeah, if I can just chime in real quick, I think a real big driver of that has been the combination of Citizens United plus the rise of social media. And that when fundraising is a 24-hour cycle, a full year cycle, I mean, anyone who has ever donated to a political campaign, I'm sure you've gotten the email where it's like, your best friend, like, Chris, the time is short, we need your help. Like,
Chris, this is Kamala Harris.
right, exactly. Like, they're the ones setting up the parasocial relationship, and it's so they can get your money, because in our current political system, money is power. And I disagree with that. I think we absolutely need to overturn Citizens United, but until we do that, obligatory to the ground. But yeah, no, it's like, until we do that, we have to understand that the driver behind this is because these politicians need money, and they've discovered this is the easiest / best way for them to get money, is to make you think that you have that relationship with them, right? Because you're more likely to give money to someone that you feel you have that connection to. And you know, it's just, yeah, like, we need to get money out of politics. We need to get rid of Citizens United.
I have many thoughts, because every time I get a text asking me for money, I'm like, go do your job, and I might give you money.
Yeah, no, those red flags, always asking for money?
Yes, those red flags. Yes, Green X, you've had this up for a while, so I want to make sure we get you.
So heading back to the boundaries conversation, how do you update your boundaries as you grow? Because while you may have been okay with something, while you had like maybe 50 followers, like once you get into like the 10,000, 20,000, maybe 100,000, and beyond that, like you may have been okay with something way back when, but how do you communicate that you're not okay with something? Like further on.
You tell them.
Yeah.
Do it, use your words powerfully.
Well, when you see it happen,
Yes.
stop it down.
I think the most important thing to
Sorry. I'm like, somebody talk, but not all at once.
Sorry. I just wanted to say, I think the most important thing is to just recognize that you're allowed to do that. Like, it's a totally valid for you to be like, yeah, I used to be totally okay giving out my home address because it was like, you know, 10 of you, and now I'm really not. And I'm gonna change doing that. And that the fact that I've done it before doesn't mean I need to keep doing it. It's super, super legit.
I think just communicating it, at least for me, in most of my spaces, I've got a ongoing community guidelines kind of thing. But it's because on Blue Sky, I have maybe a third of the following I had on Twitter. But my very clear boundary is, you cannot reply to me if I don't follow you. You cannot quote post anything I say. And if that's a boundary that bothers you, that means you don't need to be here. But that had changed because when those tools, even before those tools existed, I still didn't reply to every single person. I made it very clear that if I don't know you, I really don't care about you, in that sense of you getting to come into my mentions and yell and scream, or be not irrelevant, I mean, thank you. But basically just being a weirdo online when I don't have to deal with you. And now those tools that they've given us are very clear, you cannot play in this sandbox if I don't follow you. Is there anything else before I get to the last question?
Yeah, green hashtag's been up, and then I think.
Okay, green hashtag.
So during the worst of COVID, I feel like a lot of people turn to Twitch and other streaming platforms to kind of get more of that connection that they're missing in their real lives. So do you have any experience or knowledge about like how that affected the general parasocial nature of that relationship? Is it an uptick, or did it?
Oh, absolutely. Because people were at home and that was their socialization.
Yeah, and human beings, we're communal creatures. Like we want to be around other human beings. We want to communicate and interact with other human beings. Like it's very rare to find someone who's just like, no, I'm going to live alone in the woods with no contact whatsoever. And they usually tend to just go live alone in the woods with no contact whatsoever. So yeah, I think, and again, to get back to that earlier point, not all parasocial relationships are bad. Like you can have meaningful interactions and relationships with people online. You just got to make sure you're not weird about it. Like, and if you are weird about it, and someone tells you, hey, you're being weird about it, take a moment to reflect on that, right? Like we want to have that relationship with you, but it's very difficult to have that relationship with you if we communicate with you that, hey, you're crossing some lines, and then you keep doing the same behavior. Like that's when it starts becoming a problem.
So I also have some really good news for people who like to be in virtual spaces. Therapy is also virtual.
All right, I saw one over here, and it'll be the last question.
I think I might be too late, but I was going to ask for one or two examples of emails that you got that made you smile and thought were appropriate and that you welcomed.
I wish I could give you one.
So I've actually had a lot where it's, I'll say something or put something out there or, raise money for a cause or something. And like, I'll get emails from people that are like, hey, my dad just wanted you to know, like, he's really proud of what you did, and like it really made his day. Like especially when I got arrested for protesting a MAGA flag. Like I got so much positive feedback from people who were just like, thank you for doing that. Like that gave me heart during a time where I felt like no one really cared about what was going on. And to me, that is the great thing about social media, about the internet and online interactions, is that 20 years ago, I never would have known those people. Right? Like I never would have been able to talk to those people. I never would have been able to crack jokes, with someone from Australia or Europe. Like it just wouldn't happen the same way. But we can do that now. We just have to treat each other like human beings. Like we have to understand that even though you see my, painted Benethrax miniature, there's a human being on the other side of the screen, and vice versa, right? Like when I see you online, there is a human being on the other side of the screen. So let's treat each other like human beings, not as representations of human beings. Like understand that that's a person.
Yeah, and something that was really powerful for me is like the organization I work for. I work for the Autism Society of Minnesota, and it's really wonderful there. I get to be out at work with like all my identities. It's really special. Most of my colleagues are also neurodivergent, queer, amazing humans. And so our executive director had taken it upon himself, genuinely and like lovingly, to talk about RFK and how his comments were affecting our community. And we had some pushback on our comments because there's some people who really agree with him, and that's sure a thing that people experience, which is sure choice. And then we also had a lot of really lovely emails. We had a lot of really lovely emails that were like, thank you for saying this, thank you for naming this, thank you for not shying away from the hard conversations. And we did have some of those thank you for not shying away on like both sides of that conversation. And I was trying to make this, don't get me wrong, but it was really refreshing to get those emails of the thank yous and the thank you for speaking for people and supporting and being in the community as well.
I've gotten some really, really nice emails. Like I've gotten emails from people who tell me what my stories have meant to them and that have made me cry. Like there are people that say really nice things about you when you have work that's out there as well.
All right, and we are actually over time, so I apologize for that. CONvergence. Thank you all for being on the panel. Thank you all for coming and hanging out and asking questions.